Today's devotion comes from the email I received from dailygood.org. It's a story about Ray Avis under the title, The Frightfully Wondrous Experience of Being Here. First, a quote from Ray. Forgiveness is centered inside of you, just like love. In prison, you see all different versions of unforgivingness. And being a firefighter in prison, you understand the unforgiving nature of nature. Forgiveness occurs in the earth, just the way nature balances itself. You learn how to balance yourself. Forgiveness is just a wonderful thing. It feels like a superpower. Ray Avis didn't call herself a writer till she was accused of the crime that would eventually result in 437 days of incarceration. In the 4 years between the accusation and the handcuffs, after a friendly push from her husband, the writer himself, she started a blog named Rarasour, meaning frightfully wondrous things happen here. It became a space for writing about love and grace and grief, and won many awards for being gentle-spoken and insistently hopeful. In May of 2015, she wrote a goodbye post on the blog, for the first time alluding to the case that had followed her around for years. She was in jail just a few days later. Shockingly to her, the blog followed. She received letters every single day and wrote posts when she could. Some writings were about topics she had covered before, some about the newness of this world. She traveled to the country's largest women's prison. She became a firefighter. In May of 2016, with just a few months of a sentence left to serve, Ray's husband, Dave, passed away. We often forget about how the prison system impacts people. One thing I try to highlight in my poetry is that I lost my husband while I was inside. And that's obviously important on a personal level. Probably the most important thing that's happened to me in my life, the biggest thing, but it's also important on a level when we're speaking to mass incarceration. Because a year with his only person in jail killed a man. It does harm to the families who aren't serving time, the people who are out there while pieces of their hearts are locked away. The blog came to Dave's funeral too, in the form of strangers who had been reading for some time, in the form of stories written in support. With that support behind her, Ray has since published 3 books. In essence, all 3 of them are about love and grace and grief. Sometimes that grief is about the death kind. Sometimes it is about the failed systems kind. And sometimes it is the kind that fluctuates between desperately wanting to remember and desperately wanting to forget. In 2019, Ray had another experience with forgetting, and this one without the grace of want. A prison injury followed her outside into the world. What began as unhappy blood gathered by a hip injury exploded like tiny stars into her brain and caused what the doctors call mini strokes. She lost her ability to read or recognize written language in any way. In time, she learned to see out of the sides of her eyes again. She learned to read and write again. She learned to walk as if she had never fallen so hard. It's really a common thing for people to think that we come out of our terrible experiences stronger or braver. I actually think we come out of them more fragile, softer, and a little slower, and a little bit more cautious of the things because we've been a little broken. And usually when people hear that barrage of words, they think of it as a negative thing. But that's only because our society values speed and toughness. There's so much joy to be felt in slowness and softness. Amen. Have a great day.